All right, hello everyone. Oh, that's annoying. All right, bear with me. As soon as I hit record, my camera changed up the zoom on me. I had it all set up perfectly. There we go. All right, I think that's about as good as it's going to get here. I wanted to do a brief overview of this, which is Gleason's new standard map of the world. The date on this thing is 1892, patent allowed. And I just want to mention that this goes along with this book, which is the Bible from Heaven? Is the Earth a Globe? By Alex Gleason. I haven't fully read this, but this is from Gleason was a Bible-believing Christian, I believe, and there's a lot of good stuff in here. And I need to finish reading this because this is one of the probably the three best books on flat Earth. The other two being Like Clay Under the Seal by Dean Odell and The Greatest Lie on Earth by Hendry. I'm going to go grab those real quick and show them to you real fast. So here we've got Odell's book, Like Clay Under the Seal. And here we have Hendry's book, The Greatest Lie on Earth. I really like this book, but he does get off on some Christian doctrinal rabbit trails, and some people find that distracting. So just be aware of that. But I do think it is well worth a read. And I have read Hendry and I have read Odell. I haven't finished Gleason yet. Gleason's book was written over 100 years ago. His writing style isn't. It was easy enough to follow, as I recall. It's been a while since I've cracked it open. I'm just not used to. It's been a while since I've read any literature or writings from. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a slog compared to reading modern stuff, but I need to get back into it. Anyway, so this is Gleason's new standard map of the world, and I just want to read what it says on here real quick for you. So it says the new standard map of the world as it is. As it is. So that's actually the claim of this map. And by the way, this was patented because it's not just a map. It is a functional time zone calculator. I want you to think about that. It is a functional time zone calculator. And it's on the projection of the modern college. This is actually what we call an AE projection, or an azimuthal equidistant, which means we've got the North Pole in the center. And then instead of the map wrapping around a globe, it spreads out from the center and then culminates in the Antarctic ice ring. Or it's not a continent, it's a ring around the world pond that holds in the seas. And this is as the Bible says, that God has established bounds for the seas. That's exactly what God describes in the scriptures. But notice here that it also says, I don't know if you can read this. I tried to get this in frame as best as I could. But it says here, scientifically and practically correct on here. Scientifically and practically correct. So that's one claim that Gleason is making. And then he's also making that this is the new standard map of the world as it is. That this is an accurate representation of reality. And I do believe that. And then, as I pointed out, it is a functional longitude and time zone calculator. And that's why it was patented. And actually, you can still find occasionally, or at least I should say, you can see pictures of them online. I haven't run into one in person, but see this little hole in the middle? That's a place where there would be two hands affixed to this, like a clock. And I've said in other videos that the layout of our flat Earth realm that the Creator made for humanity's habitation, it did inspire sundials, and it did inspire the analog clock with the two hands and everything. A good descriptor for our Earth realm is it is a analog clock with the sun, the moon, and the planets being the wandering stars, and the stars as well, moving over the Earth. And they are there specifically for purposes of timekeeping, and the Bible says that. The Bible says that in Genesis, that the sun, moon, and stars were created for signs, seasons, days, and years. That is the purpose of the heavenly bodies. So we do live inside of a clock. And that's kind of interesting in light of these cosmological arguments about, the clockmaker behind the universe and so forth. But let's not get too lost on that. I want to keep digging into this a little bit. So we could talk, I guess, about how the time zone calculator on here worked. The way it worked is you would find your longitude on here. So, for example, I'm here in Tennessee, and I wanted to calculate the time difference over in Africa. There'd be two hands on here, and I would line it up, one hand with myself and one hand with the area that I wanted to calculate. And then you can see that there are Roman numerals all around the periphery here. And the way it worked is once you had your hands set up, you would lock them together and then move them. And then that would tell you on this ring here, it would point, you would just shift it. And it would tell you the relative time based on the time, of where you were. I think what you would do is you'd first set up that ratio, basically, or that conversion factor, the two hands relative to each other. And then you would actually adjust your hand to be the time on the ring, your local time. And then the other one would be the local time of the area that you were trying to calculate. And that's how this thing would work. And it was a patented, or I should say patent allowed. I don't know if that necessarily means that a patent was issued or not. It does say applications were made in England, Canada, France, Denmark, Sweden, Germany, and Austria. So he patented this thing, or applied for patents in many different countries. Now, what's going on here at the bottom? Let's see here. So this middle stuff seems to be like a distance calculator. I'm not going to go into that in great detail. I want to talk about these insets here and what these are. So firstly, understand that we'll just briefly go over navigation. Navigation works perfectly well on a flat Earth. Your compass points to true north. That's the center, the North Pole. There is no South Pole on a flat Earth. And your compasses point north. There is instead that Antarctic ring. And so let's talk about the movement of the sun and why it's called Arctic and Antarctic, or Antarctic, and we'll talk about that a little bit here. So you've got your right here. That's the equator. And then there is the Tropic of Capricorn down here, and your Tropic of Cancer up here. So what are the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer and the equator? Well, the sun is actually making circuits over this Earth realm, and the seasons come from its traveling in and out as it makes those circuits. So during the northern hemisphere summer, for example, summer here in Tennessee, the sun is going to be traveling more closely to that line here, here, which is the Tropic of Cancer. And then in the summertime, the sun's down here making bigger circuits around the Tropic of Capricorn. And that's where your seasons come from, because the sun is actually physically closer in the northern hemisphere's summertime, and warmer and more direct angle of sunlight. And so the sun is traveling in and out, and that's what these two insets are talking about. So there are two equinoxes, which are where night and day have an equal amount of time. It's right there in the name, equinox, equal night. So the periods of light and darkness have an equal time at certain points of the year. Twice a year that happens, and it varies from your location on Earth, is my understanding on that. Now the solstices, which are talked about in these insets, the June solstice and the December solstice. The solstice is the sun's apparent highest point in the sky, and that's going to come from it, and that comes twice a year as well for each place on Earth, I believe. Let's see here. So this shows here the June solstice. This shows the sun being right on the Tropic of Cancer. And so what that's going to do for you, when the sun's making a circuit on this smaller inner circuit, if you are in the Arctic, the sun is going to be arcing around you, and you're going to have a period of 24-hour daylight. Why is that? Because the sun is actually physically close enough to illuminate the entirety of the inner circle. I mean the Arctic circle here, this far. 24 hours during the summertime. That's why there are places in the northern hemisphere where you do have that 24-hour daylight. And the shape of the illuminated area that the sun's illuminating is roughly like that. Now I will point something out. So you can see kind of the darker area that's not illuminated by the sun and the lighter area that is illuminated by the sun. We'll talk about why it has that shape. And but let's go back to Arctic and Antarctic. So Arctic, if you're in the Arctic Circle up here, while the sun is making that smaller circuit around the Tropic of Cancer, there's places up north where you will have 24-hour daylight. And then, and it's called the Arctic because if you're in that Arctic Circle, the sun will be making an arc around you, and it will be visible, making that circuit 24 hours at certain times of the year. Now, the Antarctic, if you're down here in Antarctica, so I used to actually get a little ticked off early on when I started investigating flat Earth stuff because I am a little bit of a grammar Nazi, and I was seeing people spelling it Antarctic. But actually, that does seem to be a correct spelling of it. Going back hundreds of years, people spelled it interchangeably as Antarctic or Antarctic. And so I can't actually get too upset with people when I see them spelling it as Antarctic. That is not from ignorance. Those people may actually have been reading some of the explorers and writers and astronomers of the past who actually spelled it that way before spelling was, more standardized. I guess that was Webster that standardized the English language a little bit better. Personally, I would spell it Antarctic just because that's, the more modern spelling of it. But the meaning is right there. When you're down in Antarctica, the sun is not arcing around you. It is anarcing. And so even when the sun is making its biggest circuit around that Tropic of Capricorn, you're still outside of the circle that the sun is making. And this does raise some interesting questions. Is the sun itself actually warming our Earth realm and thawing it out to the point that there's livable land and stuff in the territories underneath it? I think so. And then we have to ask the question, in the past, was the sun making a bigger circuit and actually warming more territory because there is land under this frozen ice wall? There's land down there. Actually, in the area that I call tourist Antarctica down here, some of that land extends up and out. Now notice this is Gleason. This map's from 1892. We do actually have some better understandings of the actual land topography under the ice and stuff like that now. And on modern maps, you can see the tourist Antarctica, the archipelago that comes up out beyond that ice wall ring. And there's land down there. Yeah, absolutely. And there might be some other places as well where there's land also. This is the so-called Summer Gate region that the Iron Republic talks about. And I believe it's that book. I have not read it. I actually just got it for Christmas, but I haven't read it yet. That book speculates that there might actually be other lands beyond this. I am not so sure about that, and the reason why is the Bible says that the sun, the heat of the sun actually touches everything that exists in material creation. The Bible says that, and so I do think that this is the realm here. I don't think that there's necessarily other worlds out there with other suns. I think that's getting us into a science fiction realm. We got to be careful about that kind of thing. It's interesting to speculate, but in a biblical worldview, there's one sun. And it was for this earth realm that God created for humanity. And this is physical creation. There's other things beyond this in the spiritual realm. But everything that exists, the Bible says, is touched by the heat of the sun, which is interesting. So we talked about Arctic, we talked about Antarctic, we talked about the movements of the sun. Let's talk about how the sun's light works. Because I still hear flat earthers say that the sun shines down like a spotlight on Earth, and that is not true. I can understand why they say that, but it's not really correct. The sun is more like a globe lantern. And so you're probably going to ask me the question next, well, if the sun's like a globe lantern hanging above this flat earth realm, how come everyone can't see it at any given time? Well, understand it's like a lantern glowing in the dark woods at midnight. It's dark, it's foggy. Think about how that works. You have a lantern, it's going to illuminate a certain circle of light around it. It's casting its light out. Let's say it's a globe lantern of some kind. It is actually throwing its light out all around it, above it, below it, to the sides. But it's going to illuminate a circle on the ground that reflects the radius of the light that lantern is putting out. But that light from the lantern, it's not going to light up the entire forest. It's not going to light up the entire world. It has to push through the dark. It has to push through the fog. It has to push through any dust, water vapor, and things like that are in the air. And then it just has to push through distance as well, because the atmosphere itself has a weight to it. So understand that the sun's light does not just shine out infinitely in all directions. We have this idea in our mind that light travels infinitely forever because we're told that the stars are trillions of miles away, which is not true. It's not true. The stars are very near and local. They almost have to be. Your eye does not have an infinite range of vision. And if you think about it, even a laser beam, as focused as that is, a laser beam over distance will scatter. And so think about all those stars out there. We're told that they're these giant burning balls of gas billions of miles away. But think about it, they're not laser beams pointed right at your eye. They're not. They're just radiating out light. So how is that light making it those billions and trillions of light years or whatever without being scattered to the point that we can't perceive it anymore? It's nonsense to say that those stars are vast eons away and that your eye can perceive them at that distance. That's just simply not true. But because we're told that, because we believe that, we also tend to think that if the sun is hanging over this earth realm, that everybody should be able to see it from anywhere on Earth. That's simply not the case. The sun's light has to push through the atmosphere. It has to push through dust, smog, clouds, water vapor, and so forth. And eventually, just due to distance, in certain places, during the nighttime, you're not going to be able to see the sun. It's just the way that it is. Think of it this way. Imagine that you have a huge warehouse and it's empty. And then you have a single light bulb. Are you going to be able to light up the entire warehouse with one light bulb? No, you're not. Likewise, you're not going to be able to light up the whole world with that one sun all at once. That's why the sun moves. God set it up that way so we have a day-night cycle. It was part of God's design. But the sun does not shine down like a spotlight and illuminate just, a circle on the ground. No, it is an orb. It is radiating its light outwards in all directions. It's just that there's going to be a circle or a hot spot, so to speak, or an illuminated area underneath of it. And then beyond that is just distance too far that light can't push out. So that illuminated area, during our daytime is going to be roughly here, and the rest of the world's going to be in darkness. Now, I want to point out something regarding the shape of the illumination here. So there are points in the year and this changes, and the reason why it changes is the sun, remember, is moving in and out between let me see if I can line up my finger on the camera. So we've got equator, equator. This little line up here, Tropic of Cancer, line down here, Tropic of Capricorn, and the sun is making its circuits, and it's spiraling in and outwards. It's going in from the outwards from the Tropic of Cancer, and then all the way out to the Tropic of Capricorn, then back. It was zoop, 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 and it passes over the equator twice every year, is my understanding of that. And I'm just doing this off the top of my head. If I've made any mistakes, please let me know in the comments, and I will correct that to the best of my ability as I have time in the description of this video. But so the sun's, spiraling in and out, and as it moves in and out, understand that we're under a firmament dome, a crystalline structure that Josephus wrote about, that the Bible talks about. Actually, I was reading Tycho Brahe. I got a little book from late 1940s about writings of scientists, and there was a work by Tycho Brahe in there, and he talks about the 8th celestial sphere, which during his time they believed in a crystalline sphere, which was the 8th shell or celestial sphere into which the stars were studied. And the other spheres, so to speak, inside were the circuits of the planets, the wandering stars. And so understand that this idea of a solid crystalline firmament that we are underneath, a dome structure that the stars are possibly studied into, this is an idea that goes back a long ways. It's been suppressed now for the last 100 years, but it goes back for a long ways. And understand that it is reflective, it's crystalline. So if the sun is making a circuit around this outer limit, the Tropic of Capricorn, its light is actually reaching to that firmament and then being reflected off of that and bent in various ways. And if you want to see what I mean by this, look up something called coffee cup caustics. So if you take a metal coffee cup and you shine a single light input into it, and you change the relative position of that light input, it changes the pattern of shadow and light on the surface of the coffee that's down in the cup. There's going to be points where if your light source is out here, your circle is more perfectly circular. But as the circle approaches the boundary of that reflective barrier, in this case our firmament structure, light actually gets bent around the outside. So you have these lit wings around the periphery. It's really weird. And so you get a structure that's more roughly circular at certain times of the year. You get a structure that looks, a light pattern that looks more like this at certain times of the year. And then see these outside parts. His here, he has the shapes as roughly the same. They're really not. He didn't know about the coffee cup caustics stuff and how light actually gets wrapped around the periphery, and so you have more of a wing shape at certain times of the year. And that's just due to the reflective properties of that crystalline firmament structure. And I do believe, so I've been seeing some articles recently about something called superionic ice. I do think that science is now openly admitting to the existence of the material that makes up that firmament structure. Superionic ice is a matrix of pure crystalline oxygen. And then there are hydrogen atoms, hydrogen ions that freely flow within that matrix. That's superionic ice. Understand that this stuff is incredibly hard. It's blue, it's a crystalline structure, and it can withstand, it's ice, but it can withstand temperatures of over 6,000 degrees Fahrenheit. I want you to think about that a little bit. And I believe that that is what our firmament is made of. I believe it is this superionic ice. Now, the official story that the scientific community is putting out there is that they discovered this stuff on one of the planets. I forget which one it was. I want to say it was the moon of Europa, supposedly, is where this superionic ice was discovered. That's just nonsense. I have no doubt that they know exactly where this stuff is and that it's part of the firmament dome. We have plenty of research bases and outposts in Antarctica, and they are studying this, from what I understand. I've heard some interesting testimonies about that. They know about the ice wall, and then beyond the ice wall, there's another ice wall, the firmament structure itself, and we're in a big fishbowl, and people who are living in rebellion against God, they don't like that. They want to get out. Since the Tower of Babel, people have been trying to get out. We're not meant to get out. Operation Fishbowl, nuclear weapons being tested in the high atmosphere, trying to break out. We're not meant to get out. This is the realm that humanity has been given for our habitation. Now, there will be a time when some of us are on the other side. I want you to think about that. Think about that expression that we use, on the other side. On the other side of what? Well, that's spiritualized a lot. Well, if you're coming from a Christian perspective, on the other side of the River Jordan, or death. But also on the other side of the firmament structure. Currently, we're on the inside. This is the material realm that we inhabit. One day, those of us who are God's children, we're going to live on the other side of the firmament. And that's going to be pretty cool. We're going to be standing on that sea of glass that's the top of the firmament structure, underneath God's throne, and praising God with the multitude of his saints. That's where it's all heading for those of us who know our Creator in a personal way through Jesus Christ. But I just wanted to lay out how some of that works. There's actually kind of more stuff here, really. There's a lot of little interesting notations and stuff here and there on this map that currently, for the purposes of this video, I didn't really prepare or dig in great detail. So there's other things that could be talked about this, some of these little notations and what these distance and angle calculators are for and stuff like that. I'm still not sure exactly what all this is. This triangle shape and this notation here at the top, not sure about that. That's something I'd be really interested to see if someone else has tackled that. I think there's a manual out there somewhere for this, the new standard map of the world longitude calculator, that details some of the things you can do with it. But understand, this isn't just a map, it is a very functional tool. And I'll point out that this AE map, the azimuthal equidistant, it is the air map that was used during World War II. And it's the map that's on the UN flag. But the reason it was the air map used during World War II is because the distances are correct. What does that say to you? Well, that says to me that this is an actual, accurate representation of the Earth realm that we live in. That it is this, or pretty close to it. Now, are there areas of land, maybe, that we're just not being told about that are restricted? Quite possibly. Quite possibly. With GPS, you can route people however you want, and you can keep them out of these peripheral areas where you could be hiding all manner of things. And, there's some pretty interesting stuff about some of these lost continents and archipelagos and stuff. I have no doubt that there are island chains and things like that are being kept from public knowledge. Because understand, it's always the establishment that pays for and sponsors exploration. Always has been. Always has been. It's been the state. Isabella and Ferdinand of Spain, or was that Spain or was that Portugal? I don't remember. I'd have to dust off my my history knowledge of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's always, the royal societies and things like that. It's the crown that's funding, and the U.S. government that's funding these expeditions and things like that. And you can bet they're not sharing everything that they discover with the common people. It's just not how things work. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to say about this. Oh yeah, one last thing. So if you've ever gotten maps from the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management here in the U.S., or whatever your map or geological authority is in your part of the world, You'll probably notice at the top of each map section there's something called magnetic declination. And so when you're using that map, you can't just use the map. North is not north on that map. You have to take your compass heading of your actual compass that's in your hand, and you have to adjust that according to whatever that magnetic declination adjustment is that's on the map. What is that all about? Well, understand that maps are made according to the globe model. And the globe model doesn't work, practically speaking. It doesn't work. And so there needs to be a conversion factor to make those maps functional on an actual practical level, like working with your compass. And that's where magnetic declination comes in. If they were just making maps off of an AE projection, north would be north, and you wouldn't need that extra conversion factor in there to make those globe-based maps functional. That's my theory about magnetic declination and what that's all about. And I'd be interested to see if anyone can prove that theory or disprove that theory. I'm not a cartographer or anything like that, and I'm not really a heavy-duty math guy. That's just me kind of analyzing it and trying to break it down to the best of my understanding, and that's the conclusion that I've come to. That magnetic declination is the conversion factor that takes those flawed globe-based maps, I should say, and converts them so that they're actually functional and they can still be useful. And anyway, I hope you found this video interesting, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.